every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
You need the right people in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you have the right people in the right place, but at the wrong time.
I've got to keep going forward. I've got to keep looking for revenue streams. I've got to keep looking for growth, keep looking at new ways of doing things.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated. Yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. On this week's episode of ScaleUp Radio, we've got a great presentation discussion all centred around business rhythms. And first of all, you'll hear from Granger Forson explaining a little bit more about business rhythms, what they are, how we should approach them, and the benefit that implementing them properly can bring to your business. Arguably, the business rhythm, alongside the 90-day planning, which is part of that rhythm that you'll have heard us talk about before, is the most important part of running your business. Essentially, a business rhythm is a structured set of meetings from daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, up to annually, carefully put together to ensure that we bridge the gap properly between strategy and execution, and we do so consistently well, ensuring that we do the right things and that the right things are done well. Of course, most of us already have a rhythm of sorts within our businesses, but what we've found is that most rhythms tend to be focused on the day-to-day, and they miss some really important aspects that we cover within this presentation. And we cover all sorts of things, including what you need to get the rhythm right. Maybe the rhythm you've already got isn't quite the right one for your business, and a few things that you maybe need to think about to incorporate into your existing rhythm. We talk about why you should create a rhythm even if you're a solo business owner. And we also talk about how casual encounters can ruin a good business rhythm. Of course, as always, there's so much more in this episode, including things to look out for to know whether your business rhythm isn't quite working as well as perhaps it should do. And also, you'll hear a panel discussion where a group of business owners talk about their business rhythms, how they have incorporated them and maintained their own rhythm, and how you should think about creating and maintaining your own. And a full list of the business owners featured in the panel discussion are included in the show notes.
We're coming to what arguably is one of the most important sections of all, the business rhythm. And this, alongside the 90-day planning, as we've talked about in previous sessions, are what we class as the two fundamental things for execution in your business. So this is something you can start right away. It's really easy to do, regardless of whether you are a one-person company or a larger business. And personally, I have a business rhythm already embedded in my business. To get the rhythm right, you can work on all the areas and gradually make changes over time as you learn and make it more successful within your business. So we find, as we said, that business leaders that are excellent at focusing on execution are not always good on strategy, and vice versa in terms of how they work and doing it. So what we're talking is about how we align both the strategy through the execution to actually deliver success in your business. We call this the business rhythm, and it's literally the heartbeat of your business. Okay, so it's about those vital things that you need to do to deliver your goals, your stretch goals within your business. And just like the heartbeat of a business, heartbeat in your body, there are times when that will need to speed up. There are times when that will need to slow down. But it's vital that you have that rhythm going to make things deliver what you need. We all know that getting the balance right between working in and working on your business is really crucial, and it's not always easy. Okay. However, as you start to set up your business rhythm and create that structure, you will find that natural way of making it successful for your business. So what do we mean by business rhythm? It's essentially a well-structured form of daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly meetings. But meetings for meeting's sake, okay, depending on what type of business and your pace of growth, as we said, the business rhythm will change depending on your heartbeat, okay? And at some point, you're thinking this sounds like a whole load of unnecessary meetings, and frankly, that we've all had our fair share of poorly run meetings, and you need to sort of get away from that thinking and actually think about the power of this. But let's just think about meetings for a moment, okay? I can understand that we've all had, especially if you've worked in the corporate world, you've worked in some really poorly run meetings, okay? Maybe you sat there wondering why you were there, frankly frustrated, when meetings go off track, etc. So it's important to get the meetings to work and to be really successful. Okay. And most bad experiences around meetings, if you think about it, come down to a few common issues like a lack of agenda, a clear purpose of the meeting, and a clear expectations and outcomes of those meetings. So a correct meeting rhythm will actually save you time and avoid those constant interruptions, and will provide a formal for a way of tabulating and discussing the issues within your business, where you can address them properly within agreed time limits. And it's really important that you have that further discussion and understanding about who's going to do it and by when. Furthermore, casual encounters, I just need to go and speak to so-and-so. I've just had this idea of what we can do in our business. Those casual encounters don't really take part of two things. The first thing is there's no gentle peer pressure or collective intelligence taking place. And the other big powerful thing that takes place is that through all the studies that's taken place over time, interruptions, if you are interrupted, you lose up to 30% of your time as you try to refocus and get back on track in terms of what you are doing. So that's not just you as the business owner, but it's all those people that maybe you've interrupted with that, I just need to speak to them in terms of doing things, okay? So meeting casual encounters do not work. You need to build that structure and that rhythm in your business. Most people have good intentions to come to work and they want to contribute and help the business grow. So let's make sure those meeting environments that we create really encourage this. So let's build into our meetings the requirements for our team members to bring information. Let's ask them to be accountable for what they are doing and what they're keeping track of, maybe their rocks, their key objectives in the business. In other words, let's put the onus on them to take ownership in terms of reporting. Let's get them to terms of think about their positive corrective actions and things they're doing, rather than just coming to us and burdening us to keep the business on track in terms of what we're trying to do. But maybe you're still not convinced, okay? Well, how about introducing not all those meetings, etc.? Well, just read this list, and if you can recognize at least two of these things that are happening in your business, maybe it's time now to really think about putting in or improving your current meeting structures in terms of what you want to do. If you've been in business now for more than a year or so, you've probably got an established sort of business rhythm in place, which is working, hence why you're successful to date. But what we see when we look at a lot of these structures that we see in the businesses we work with is they're usually based around the tactical implementation of the day-to-day, so the operations that need to take place to deliver what we've promised to our clients, which is great, but rarely do we actually see that the rhythm achieves the balance between this, which we need to do every day, and actually moving the business forwards and capitalizing on the real collective know-how and the peer pressure that we could bring with a good business rhythm. So we were talking about remembering the strategy execution divide and being able to do both of them. And this is where those 10% companies have got the business rhythm right, that gives us both the strategic and the day-to-day activities. And when we really look at it, these are the sort of structures that we should see within our businesses. So we've got the long-term strategic thinking, which doesn't need to take place every day. And at the bottom, we've got the daily tactical activities that are taking place. So what you need to do is find the right balance of business rhythms that works for you and your business at this time. As we said, as your business changes and grows, that structure will need to change along with you. So what I'd like to do is look at just a couple of meetings. So the first meeting I'd like to introduce you to is what we call the Smart 7. And this is really the sort of the beat, particularly in small companies that maybe you don't need a daily huddle yet in terms of what you need to do. And the Smart 7 refers to the frequency that we meet, i.e. every 7 days. And it's usually the first sort of meeting that you would set up in terms of doing that. But what we're now introducing is also looking at the long-term goals and how they're fitting into the activities that people do. So a typical sort of structure would be along the lines of, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, what did go well, where do we need to improve? Okay, looking at our critical numbers, our actions, our rocks, and giving feedback on the status of those. Some learnings from the week, getting that feedback and that intelligence from our customers and our employees. And then a real focus challenge session where we're looking at those things that need to be improved based on our feedback in the previous section of the meeting. And then we're finishing off by defining smart actions of who, what, where, and when. And we're then looking at key takeaways from everybody, getting feedback for the meeting, how can we improve it, and what their priorities are for the next week. And if you also notice, not only is it a 7-day meeting schedule, okay, we meet every 7 days, but also there's 7 agenda items in there as well. Another fun one that was introduced to us by a select member, Helen Bauer from Ada Bookkeeping, is a monkey business meeting, okay? And again, this is about stopping interruptions. So throughout the day, her team are encouraged to write down all the questions they need to ask her and each other that would naturally stop the flow of work and getting things done in terms of doing it, i.e. the monkey business. And once a day, what they do is they stop, have a cup of tea, and they have their monkey business session where they talk to each other and ask each other all those questions that would have stopped an interruption in terms of doing stuff. So another great idea, an example of how you can use the business rhythm to be successful in terms of making your business work.
What do we think the business rhythm means to us, or what have we picked up from some of the things that I've sent out and whatever? So let's see, Paul, what's your thoughts on business rhythm? I can kick off with you.
Well, for me, it's consistency more than anything. Like, it's scheduled time in the diary to review. So we have some meetings are monthly. Like a Smart 90 review is monthly with the team and various members, but mainly we have a lot of daily stand-ups. So for me, I guess I kind of allot a first part of the morning to kind of manage. And so I attend the daily developer stand-up, and I have James now who runs that. But I know that it happens without me, which is the biggest thing, and it's got a certain structure. And they'll go through ultimately what any blockers are so that people can work on that throughout the day. And then I head into a meeting just with James. So that's around kind of the more account project management side. And then we've also got a sales and marketing team now. So we have that as well. So pretty much within an hour, I attend kind of like 3 15-minute meetings to set up the day. And then I'm done for management, to be honest.
Great.
Largely sloping shoulders. And then, there's monthly ones. So like I have like a monthly team strategy meeting where we review stuff. And then I guess built into that, so like you said, the Smart 90 actually day, attending that. And like, this is a business rhythm for me, like attending smart boards is like a monthly thing. So I think if you have structured time that's diarised, that's about working on the business rather than just in it. Obviously the daily stand-ups don't qualify, but yeah, it's finding that time. So the default diary for me brings it all together. So like a really well-structured diary where you know you've got a certain hat on and a certain headspace is critical. So yeah, for me, it drives everything we do. And the best thing is once it's implemented, like today, because I'm on here, I know the dev stand-up's running without me. I know that the sales and marketing team will meet, and I know that they'll go through the same 3 questions we go for every day, and then they'll split off and kind of crack on with the day, really. So peace of mind is a business rhythm for me.
Sounds really good. Yeah, sounds excellent. Who'd like to add to that, or maybe even ask Paul any questions?
So who'd like to follow that one then?
Yeah.
Well, I can go. I've got a bit of a story. I used to think that our business rhythm was pretty good. You know, I thought communication in the business was pretty good, but it was never structured. It was pretty much ad hoc. So having done Elevate, you know, we covered business rhythm. And for me, that was probably one of the real big light bulb moments on how it can really improve how we do things, just having that structured communication and, you know, just, you know, all of what Paul said. However, as I've been under pressure the past couple of months, it is so easy to fall away. And it's so frustrating because you know how damn useful and how damn good it is. And yet, under the cosh of it, and for me, it's kind of gone out the window. And again, I still thought, well, we are talking, we are knowing what people are doing, but if it's not structured and if it's not scheduled, it just doesn't happen, and you don't get the real bang for the buck out of it. So I had a good chat with Mel yesterday, and you know that is one things that we got to get back on track today. So, you know, I'm a huge advocate of it. And I said to Mel yesterday, I was a bit pissed that we let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Is anybody struggling with any particular aspects of the business rhythm?
Yeah. I find a day, I don't know whether it's that I don't need one, but a daily meeting. So I do a weekly on a Monday morning. I do the same as what Paul does. I catch up with all my heads of departments, everyone, my direct reports, everybody else, key stakeholders in the business. But then I'm like, do I need one every morning? I don't necessarily know that I do. I know the teams all have very informal meetings every morning, so they have a catch up of what they're going to do for the day and kind of the key focus for that day or that week. And it's kind of a 10-15, but I don't know whether or not that's something that I should implement or not.
Yeah. So let's see what others think. Anybody want to ask Faith about or advise perhaps on the daily huddle? Who's got some thoughts or experience for Faith on that? Go on, Gary. What about? Oh, go on, Louise. I'll ask you then. Go on, Louise.
Well, let Gary go first, and I'll bring up the rear.
Well, I was putting on Gary.
You were pushing Gary.
Well, it's just Louise. You start.
Well, I mean, it's a while since we did the daily huddle, Faith, but you know, certainly from the point of view of in the manufacturing area, we used to have a daily huddle around the production board, or you know, around the board for what we were going to be doing, and it was literally a stand-up 15 minutes. You know, even though the board was a big sheet of paper printed out, we had a huddle around it, and it was literally to get the key people, you know, the department heads or whoever it was, or just around the table, just to check, are we aware of it, what's going on? Are there any issues? You know, what are the things we need to be aware of? And just make sure we were all on the same page just for that. And it's literally just for that day, and maybe linking into the following day, depending on how long the print runs were. But it literally just for that day, and it's 15 minutes, no more. Very, very tactical, very now. And I've also done it with the customer services team, for instance, for exactly the same reason. Just having a quick sense check across the team, make sure we all knew exactly what we were expecting today, and so that if anything went slightly awry, the team knew how to handle it rather than it all necessarily falling on one person. So that's how I use the daily huddle.
Yeah. And Louise uses the expression quite a lot as well. I'm going to talk for Louise a little bit here, but about the business rhythm, it is the heartbeat of the business. And like your heartbeat, that changes depending on the stage of the business and what's going on at that time. And Matt Busby, I mean, maybe I should just let you speak about your example with your daily huddles, because you actually increased the frequency of them, didn't you, at one point?
Yeah, we were doing it. I mean, when we were right in our busy period, in our summer peak, I did what you often do, Kevin, at the beginning of the meeting. What is your one word? And I'd go for a temperature check around the room. And it was quite clear that, there were times where some people were struggling a bit and they would go very quiet. And I knew that they were probably under a bit of pressure. And it was funny how that you just said, right, guys, temperature check, what's one word across the room that sums you up at the moment? And then we were able to address that problem. Like, I'm really swamped with this particular type of label that we're doing. Can I pass it over? And it's funny that people wouldn't easily say, I'm struggling, but when challenged like that in that situation, how are you feeling now? What can we do? It worked really well. It really did.
So you and Paul obviously do a daily stand-up, daily huddle. Anybody else do a daily? Yeah, Jez?
Sorry. Yes, I do. And I think it's kind of invaluable for us. I mean, for the reasons that kind of Louise mentioned, but also I think in terms of Faith, kind of wondering whether or not it's actually valuable kind of doing that kind of regularly. From my perspective, it's really important to kind of get into the routine, because I think what I kind of tend to find is, we're a technical organization full of kind of support engineers. So by nature of most of the stuff that most of the team do is reactive. It's not kind of proactive. And that would be the same in meetings. Typically, meetings would only happen if I said, all right, let's have a meeting about X, Y, and Z. But getting into the daily stand-up routine, it's getting the routine into the team now. So those meetings happen whether I'm there or not. It's just 12 o'clock every day. They just do it automatically now, and I don't have to get involved with it. It's also getting the team to think more about more proactive issues as opposed to constantly being reactive to kind of support issues and so on. So for us, it's invaluable.
Yeah. Mel, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to ask Paul what his 3 questions were that he uses in his daily huddles, but might be useful for everyone.
Yeah, so I mean, we're a software company, so for us, it all comes from Scrum and Agile. So it's all about aligning the team and kind of empowering the team member to be accountable for their actions, and then aid collaboration, really. So the 3 questions are, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to work on today? And have you got any blocks? It's as simple as that. And then the next day you do it, you know what they said they were going to do yesterday. So it's accountability. And then what it gives people the option to do as well is to say, oh, I'm working on this piece of dev till, 11:30. And then to the project manager, what do you want me to go on to next? Or I need to have a meeting with Ollie, like the senior dev, about this particular thing I'm stuck on. And so what you do is in the huddle, you keep it to a strict 15 minutes, and it can be less as well. Like depending on the team size, you could get it all done within 5 minutes. But the beauty is you don't have detailed conversations about specific project work. You kind of set up, right, me and Ollie, let's pair off after this and have that conversation. Not everybody needs to be involved in that thing. So it's very much around the room, but it's just about people developing accountability really, and kind of saying where they're going to get to, and that's it. And then the other thing we do, we're virtual, so we share a Trello board. So that's when there's a visual thing as well. It's not just people talking. The accountability is there's a Trello board and there's columns and cards are moving along it. So you can kind of see that a card yesterday that was in new has moved all the way to code review, and the developer's asking somebody else. And then we use the exact same process for sales and marketing. We have like a Trello board that we share the screen on. And then it's the same 3 questions. I've just taken it from software to sales and marketing. So I'll be like, right, I've got LinkedIn training at 12. I'm doing this. I'm doing these follow-ups. Paul, I need you to get back to these 3 people who've asked questions that I can't answer. Okay, let's have a chat about that after that. Let Josh get a crack on. So yeah, it's just, I think it's about aligning people to collaborate really. And it builds trust. It's like if they didn't meet, especially remote working, it'd be a pretty lonely place. It's like you do, and there is banter in there, and it's an informal meeting. It's not, I think it's really important that people get that chance. But we do ours at 9:15 every day. So I have like a 9:15 one, a 9:45 and a 10 o'clock. And they're with different kind of departments. But yeah, it's just accountability.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Does that help, Faith?
Yeah, I think just in my mind, I know whether I do like a whole team. Because like some teams are just 2 people. Like finance is 2 people really for us. So is it better for me to just get everyone together and ask those kind of 3 questions, or break it down by department? Because I do have that Monday morning catch up with heads of departments, and then they have that catch up with me, which is at 9:25. They have their 15-minute huddles with their team, and bring anything to obviously that meeting. So yeah, I'm just trying to battle that one in my mind at the moment.
Any suggestions on that? Stu, I know you were putting your hand up there.
No, it wasn't particularly about that, but I just obviously I'm kind of one-man band, so actually, but I just think it's important for people to get into the habit of things, and so actually, if you don't feel that you need a daily thing, then maybe you don't, but you could try it and see, and just set 10 minutes aside every day for 2 weeks and see if that makes a difference. If it doesn't, then you still probably got deeper connections with everyone. You could have got a better handle on things, but maybe not. So just maybe try it and see and stuff. But for me, because I'm on my own, I've got a daily, a weekly, and a monthly. So my daily is I check my Smart 90 software every day. So the first thing I do when I log into my computer is I open Chrome, and the first tab that automatically opens is my Smart 90 software. So I know what my smart rocks are. I can see where I am. And the second tab that opens up is always my Trello board. So I've always got those 2 things at the start of every single day. At the first 5 minutes I do, you just kind of look at those, review what went well yesterday, kind of look at sort of my do list for that day. And it's just those 2 simple things for me, kind of 3 to 5 minutes every day, remind myself of kind of what I need to be doing, what my priorities are, and they kind of really help keep me on track. And things that we discuss here in Smartboard kind of go on to that as well. So I'm constantly trying to keep on top of the things that I said I would do to kind of keep accountable. But one thing that I do, or I did particularly when I had the 2 lads working with me, is on a Friday afternoon we're down tools at 4 and we'd have beer o'clock from 4 till 5. And that was just, kind of just a social time. So it has 15 minutes of kind of what's gone well this week, what we're looking forward to next week. And the rest of that time was just social and getting to know each other and deepening those relationships. And I found that really helpful, particularly obviously because as with Paul's team, kind of working remotely can get quite isolating. So to have that kind of built-in social time at the start of, at the end of each week, we all kind of bought a bottle of beer or whatever it was, and that was really nice, just kind of nice end to the week. And so that was always kind of really helpful thing, something to look forward to as well. Kind of that early finish on a Friday was always nice, particularly in the summer when it was nice weather as well. So,
okay, very good. Graham, what about you? What's the backbone rhythm within Citizen? What would you say is your most important part of the rhythm?
Yeah, well, we have the weekly meetings as a group, but we don't do a daily huddle as a group because, like Faith says, we've got teams of 2 and teams of 4, and I think if you do a daily huddle with all the teams, it tends to distract from relevant situations for the other team. So everybody has a little daily huddle. The account directors look after the client services. Martin looks after the studio, and I look after the digital team and the finance team. But we do have a daily 5-minute catch-up, and it's very quick, not even 3 questions. Everything all right? Any issues from yesterday? Any problems that you think is going to happen today? And that's it. But we do have a weekly meeting, and we've made that the sort of compulsory day that everybody's back in the office now as well. So we're still doing the hybrid working, but we're mandatory 2 days, preferred 3, but team meeting on a Tuesday, everybody has to be in the office, and that's started to work really well.
Okay, good. And what do you cover in that weekly meeting? What's the typical agenda?
It's the what's gone well, what's not gone so well. What's on this week, what jobs you got on this week, who's coming into the office, where are you going this week, and then they tell us the days that they're in the office for that week as well.
Okay. Lisa, any thoughts you'd like to add on the rhythm?
Sort of a bit like we sort of split it down by department for the most part, because again, our telemarketing staff are on the phone, and to take them off for 15 minutes is a lot of lost revenue. But that said, the team leaders catch up with them. We have a weekly company meeting that everybody joins. And then we have a fortnightly 3-2 process meeting. So we pick 3 processes that we want to change over the next 2 weeks or tweak. So I think we have got, at times, in certain areas, I think we've got a great business rhythm, and actually it's shown with the improvements in both the telemarketing, the team leaders, that area of the business. I think we're sort of the opposite of Matt. We do great with our business rhythm when our backs are against it. Everybody seems really focused. I think one of our challenges is we have a good month, and then everybody seems to take their foot off a bit and it slips back. And then before you know it, we've got bigger challenges, and it's back to that strict, well, every other day meeting of what's going on, what have you done? So it can be a bit challenging sometimes, but I think maybe having the heads of all the departments on a daily one, maybe that would benefit us a bit more.
Okay, good. Any comments on that, Matthew, Matt Parsons? Any thoughts for Lisa on that?
We've always been, I suppose that. So we're quite similar to everybody else, I think, to a degree. We do our daily huddles, we do our management meetings, we do a company-wide meeting. I think the importance to all of these meetings is agenda is the biggest thing for us. Otherwise, I feel like you're meeting for meeting's sake. Yep. So no one sees the value in it, and everybody just turns and go, here we go again. Here's another 20-minute conversation of not getting to the point quick enough. And some people quite like having our chat, and even more so now with remote working, which threw a bit of span in the work for us, is that we're so used to seeing each other that we just talk when passing by, that as soon as we start working remotely, we weren't communicating effectively enough. But I think the biggest core part of any huddle and any meeting, whether not be daily, weekly, monthly, whatever the case be, is agenda from my perspective, because I just tend to go off in different tangents, and you don't get the value out of it that we all want to try and get out and make it as effective as we can. Yeah.
No, Paul, yeah.
Yeah, Matt, something occurred to me from exactly what you're saying. What I've found is by having a daily huddle or like the weekly team meeting, it reduces the need for other meetings. That's the biggest gain of it.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to get everybody for 15 minutes, but by doing that, everybody's aligned. So you'll end up with less kind of interruptions later on in the day, like you set up the day to, for what does good look like really. So you end up with less of, say at 10:15, somebody out of the blue saying, can I grab you? And instead of it being a 10-minute conversation, it's a 2-hour thing and it's an interruption. And so I think by having that business rhythm, it definitely helps you work on the business, because you're dealing with less interruptions and you can get on with your day and everybody's aligned. And when there is a need for a meeting, generally people are they understand a meeting doesn't have to be an hour. Like pre-sprint, if we were logging a meeting or somebody requested a meeting, you default it to be 30 minutes or default it to be an hour, and it doesn't need to be. So for me, it reduces the number of meetings we have as a team.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. And if everybody is, as Matt was saying, is clear about the agenda and clear what the purpose of each of those different types of the business rhythm is, what should be happening is people go, okay, I've got that particular challenge or whatever. that should slot into the weekly team meeting, or actually that's one for the daily huddle, or that's one for maybe the monthly one, which is what's behind those sort of the think about list, the tallies that we've got on the Smart 90, is that you can park those things for the appropriate meeting, if you like, rather than constantly distracting each other by, hang on, what do I do about this, Paul? What do I do about that, Gary? That's part of the idea. So yeah, I think very, very good point. Gary, what we still haven't really had your thoughts on this yet.
Yeah, some good points. I think, from my perspective, just the continuity of having that meeting, so all the staff know that they are having a meeting on a set day at a set time. It's really, really important. Agree with the guys. I think it kind of stops you being disturbed as well throughout the day and the week if people know that they've got the opportunity to speak to you at a set point. I think, as Matt said, agenda is really, really important. You know, you don't want a meeting for the sake of it. Obviously, we're all here because we want to grow our business. So these regular meetings that we have are going to help us keep on track of where we are within the Smart 90, well, from my perspective. So you don't want to get to the end of the quarter and realise you haven't done something. So that kind of agenda and that continuity of knowing everyone will be at that meeting at that time is good. The only other thing I was going to say was just kind of from our perspective, just try and make sure relevant people are talking to relevant people. So you wouldn't necessarily have the MD talking to the apprentice. It's got to be kind of the relevant people in the relevant meeting, really. Really important. And just think it's important to stick to it as well with kind of holidays, bank holidays and annual leave and stuff. It's quite difficult, isn't it, sometimes to stick to it, but really important to try and keep focused on it.
Okay, good. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, just one little thing for me, actually. Obviously, kind of cash flow and sort of finances have been a big challenge for me over the last quarter. So one of the things I did is I built in a half hour with my accountants once a month, just to kind of catch up, go actually look at the numbers, actually what they mean to me, to actually kind of bring those to life a little bit. But obviously one of these key things about this business rhythm is the accountability. So my accountants would actually set me, and we would agree 2 tasks that I would do in that month that would make a difference to the numbers. And then the first thing when we met the next month is say, right, so what have we done and how has that made a difference? And so I've actually built that into my kind of business development time I have on a Monday morning. And it was originally going to be like a 3-month thing to help me get over my challenge, but I'm going to carry on doing that once a month because it's been so valuable. So actually being in a bit of a crisis has actually made me think, well, what else do I need to do to really help me get my head around something that I'm not comfortable with? Yeah. And having that meeting, having that accountability thing has kind of been really, really, really vital for me.
Yeah. That's a good point. So you flexed your rhythm essentially to address a need that you got particularly at the moment within the business and brought that in. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Can I just ask one question? Paul and Jez kind of touched on it. Is about having the meetings carry on when you're not there, because I've found that everything sort of revolves around me. If I'm not here, it probably doesn't happen. I have to start the conversation, how things going. Would you sort of say to somebody else, right, you chairing the daily, you chairing the weekly or something like that, just so that it's, not all revolving around me?
Yes, absolutely. One of the important things about the business rhythm, and one of the reasons it falls apart, is the meetings aren't about the people. The meetings are about driving the business forward. So the meeting happens anyway. If somebody isn't there, don't fall into the trap of saying, oh, we'll just move it, because that undermines the importance of it. It's there for a reason. It's there for a purpose. The rhythm is set because it works to drive the business forward. So if somebody's missing, the meetings go ahead anyway. I mean, Kevin's been away for a couple of meetings recently. We had them anyway. In fact, we had 2 people missing from the team of 6 for one meeting. It goes ahead anyway, because it's about that rhythm and making sure that the team is moving the business forward all the time and not the one individual. So
I've seen business owners make the mistake of, I'm not going to be there today because I'm at a sales meeting, so cancel it, which is just undermines everything you're trying to do. So as long as the team know the agenda and you're doing it consistently, you can obviously point out and say, you know, I'm not there today, so do it without me. Just be as blatant as you can to say, you know, and then somebody will naturally lead on it and they'll meet and they'll do it. They know it's familiarity at the end of the day. And these meetings are intended to be super, super simple, aren't they, really? Everyone takes a turn, it's a quick update, and then everyone's done and everyone's aligned and that's it. So it's not like you're getting them to chair, you know, something that's a really complicated meeting. It should be at the lowest level of simplicity possible, just so that everyone can have an opportunity to speak up and then move on, really.
The other key thing from my perspective is that if I'm in the meeting, I don't run it anyway. I never run the meeting. It's always other members of the team that run the meeting, so it happens whether I'm there or not.
Yeah.
Now, actually, the big thing then is this about ownership and empowerment. So actually, so if you gave it to someone else, if say, right, this is your thing for the 10-minute huddle every day, actually their ownership of actually is kind of what's happening in the business kind of grows. Actually, they're going to be more invested in it as well. So that ownership and empowerment thing is going to be really important. Particularly taking you then out of the kind of the owner's trap thing that I know you've been facing. So
yeah, that's one of the key things that often is missing from typical business rhythms within business, because every business will develop its own rhythm if they're going to be successful. What we've seen is that the majority of those rhythms are tactical, for one. So going back to the strategy execution gap that I mentioned right at the beginning, part of the idea of the business rhythm is that we find the right frequency of the different types of meetings to, yes, make sure we've got all the strategy bits covered, but also from the bottom end, we've got all of the execution. We're keeping the plates spinning, but there's got to be a combination that bridges those gaps. So your daily huddle, you're probably not really talking strategy in your daily huddle. That's very tactical. It's about what's happening today. Whereas your annual strategic planning meeting, but you're only going to have that probably once a year, is what are we, you know, what's the goals for this next 12 months? And that's not going to be very tactical. It's going to be very strategic. But then in between, we've got the other ones, and it's getting that balance. And one of the challenge, and going back to what Stu was saying, one of the challenges is if we just focus on the tactical one, not only are we not meeting the strategic needs and moving the business forwards, but we might also not be getting that empowerment and that peer pressure. So typically, it can be a list of things that we've got to do, and it might be one person speaking more than the others. How do we get a bit of peer pressure and joint accountability going within there? But also, how do we use the collective brain power of the fact that we've now got a group of good people in the room, clever people. So maybe we should work on a particular challenge. Now, you won't do that in a daily huddle, but in your weekly team meeting, for example, you might bring in a little section on the agenda where you look at challenges that have been brought up within the week, and you work together on moving it forward to the next step.
I think as well, just to try and be careful with your agendas, not to have too many things in your agenda. Because then it can feel frustrating at the end of it when you think, we haven't even covered half of that. So I suppose be smart with that and think about, what realistically can we really add value to if we cover that or do that in this session, especially if it's kind of more of a strategic session. Because it's just something to think about, really. Yeah.
So I think we probably talked around. It sounds like, there's some really good points came out there, actually, really, really good. The takeaway or the actions really that we'd like you to do is just have a think about your rhythm, have a look at it, see whether you've got the right rhythm for your business, because it will be different for each of us. See whether the various elements are working. Are we getting the right mix of strategy and execution? Are we getting accountability and ownership? So are people going, what have I got to achieve this week or today, rather than just being told, but they've taken ownership of it? How are we getting peer pressure, a little bit of gentle peer pressure, but also collaborative use of that, as I say, that collective brain power of the people in the room working on challenges, those sort of things. How are we bringing those in?
I think one of the important things about having regular meetings that are successful is getting the engagement for the team. And we don't do this for the daily stand-up, but we certainly do it for our weekly and quarterly meetings. Is at the end of the meeting, I get everyone in the team to rate the meeting a score between 1 and 10. And see how they felt the meeting went and how we can improve on the meeting next time. And that's been really useful for those kind of senior people in the team who are very, very busy, who invariably tend to look at meetings as a complete waste of time. By soliciting their feedback and their involvement and how we can improve the meeting for next time, I'm getting more buy-in to have those regular meetings on a quarterly or monthly basis and stuff like that. So I would definitely recommend doing that as well.
Yeah, very good.
I think it's a challenge, isn't it? I think it's always a challenge. I think I think it's an ongoing thing that we focus on within our business, because it's very difficult within our business. We're a really small team, and it always seems to be the kind of regularly planned important meetings to focus on strategy and where we are in our planning and delivery that go out the window if an emergency happens, or it's sort of all hands to the pump over in another direction. But I think having split our team more effectively over the last probably 12, 18 months now, we find it much easier to kind of separate the operational and the strategic conversations that we're having. So we've now got regular governance meetings that sit across both those teams that we make sure we have a controlled agenda for. We make sure that, whenever someone brings it down into the sort of BAU topics, we go, no, stop. That's tomorrow's meeting or whatever. And it is very difficult because we are all quite heavily invested in it, obviously. But I think it's something that we've just kind of engendered now. And then when there are kind of small sort of BAU things that come up that we need to work on that affect the strategy, we're using Teams far more effectively now as well, which I think has obviously been, mind-blowing through COVID for us, is that we actually, even though we're much further apart physically, we're working much more closely together because it's those small engagements on a BAU basis through Teams. So I think we've got the rhythm for sort of both elements much more effectively than we have had previously. I don't know whether that's of any use.
Thanks. And you picked up on something really important there, which is the discipline. That is one of the key reasons why the business rhythm kind of loses its impact and its impetus. It is about that rhythm. It is about that regularity. And that's what's important. And as you say, when the proverbial hits the fan, often it goes to hell in a handcart, and the discipline of keeping that rhythm going, because it's important. It's not there because of individuals. Meetings and the rhythm is not there for the individuals. It's there to drive the business forward. And it's remembering that key element of it. David Lincoln Lewis, how about you?
We struggle a little bit with business rhythm. I mean, we have a business rhythm, but it's not really the type that we're talking about here. We're still lurching a little bit. I'm trying to bring some form of business rhythm, but trying to do it in a slightly different way by incorporating it within the sort of like an aspect within the BAU meetings, like the production meetings, and having an aspect of planning with business rhythm at the end of that meeting. We call it sort of like any other business, if you like, but it's an opportunity for them to sit outside of the operations and talk about what sorts of things we want to introduce over the next few weeks or month. And it working quite well. I mean, eventually, hopefully, the idea being that we're going to break it out and have something a little bit, but at the moment we're going through the process of training the production coordinators in the concept of business management, because at the end of the day, the production coordinators are a wireman that we're trying to train up to become business managers. So we're in the early stages of it. Our business rhythm is rather chaotic. I can't really think of anything to relate it to in real life, because it would be a little bit psychotic, I think. But ultimately, we're getting there. But we're just doing it. I'm just doing it through the back door rather than trying to do it through the front door, because unfortunately, we lurch too much day to day to have the time to be able to consider a consistent business rhythm meeting program, if that makes sense.
Mm. And you've picked up on sort of, one of the key things there, it's getting people engaged and understanding the point and the purpose of it. And, you've brought your, when you said any other business, I immediately went, ooh, but actually you're doing it in a way that will encourage engagement within the team so that you can then, as you say, break that off and they'll see the point of it rather than, so that really hits a positive tone, if you like, in terms of how you actually take it forward with a team.
I think so. We just got a bit more time doing this training, if you like, and getting them thinking a little bit more outside the box rather than just the work that they're doing right now about, how we can improve the business in regards to how it's managed within the workshop. That's always been our issue. Mm-hmm. They're still shying away from making decisions. I mean, we lost 30% of our workforce at the end of COVID. I'm talking about our production workforce through opportunities being taken elsewhere, and it's taken us 4 months to get those guys to get people back into the business and get back up to speed, and we're a long way from that. And then getting them to make decisions on whether these people should stay or not at the end of their probation, it is just a way of me testing how confident they feel about their roles at the moment. And the initial feeling was that this is quite interesting, but then once they actually think about what's involved with making those decisions, they tend to back off a little bit. So the idea being that we'll continue to have those conversations, build their confidence, and hopefully we'll start to see some interesting tactical things being brought up from the workshop rather than it's me bringing it from the office. You know what I mean? And I think that'll be a big breakthrough if we can get to that level.
Brilliant, thanks, David. Steve, how about you?
Well, this has been a hot topic for us, as Kevin will know. We discussed it in the last meeting face-to-face I had with Kevin. And at long last, after about 6 months of stress and trying and etc., I think we've actually cracked our business rhythm for our daily Scrum meetings. The daily Scrum meeting is so important for us because we face new problems every day. It helps us to collaborate within the engineers to share knowledge, to help each other with the problems. It brings up marketing ideas, highlights sales opportunities. It's thought-provoking for me in terms of strategy as to how we sort of try and incorporate strategy into the day-to-day. And it gives our sort of HR lady a feel for the stress level within the team. They do get put under stress at varying sort of degrees throughout the day. And as I say, that particular meeting is a good way to gauge at what level they're at. So the one thing that we've changed under Kevin's suggestion that seems to have done the trick is to actually get each person to host a meeting on a particular day. And it's sort of more or less given them ownership of it. And I think we've sort of nailed it now. So we'll then sort of start involving them in the Smart 90 process. And now they've got a feel for being stood up or sitting down in meetings. So, yeah, it's been a great leap forward for us.
Excellent.
Excellent. And what time of the day and how long are those Scrum meetings, just out of interest?
They're at 9 o'clock when we open up, and it's 10 minutes basically, or 12 minutes. But the longest it can go on for is 15 minutes basically.
Okay, thank you. Brilliant. David Lyons.
Yeah, probably like everybody else, struggle with this occasionally. I think we're in a position now where kind of the team meetings all happen. I think the probably bit that we struggle with is my meetings and being so sort of meeting heavy. So I've kind of recently kind of scrapped kind of all of the direct report meetings and kind of restructured them. Because the stand-up's going on across the whole business, my direct reports are in those Scrum meetings. It's then hard for me to have a Scrum meeting with those heads of, because one of our peak times is 9 o'clock in the morning. that's when the phone starts ringing at 8:30, 9 o'clock. That's when volume-wise, from a system point of view, that's where everything is kind of happening, and things like that. So I've struggled with getting a Scrum meeting in for me with my team, and then obviously because I've been handing over certain roles to people, my meeting kind of structure's changed a little bit. But yeah, trying to get that balance. We've been meeting heavy at times where there's too much going on. There's too many people in those meetings. So yeah, I've put a plan out that's going to be sort of put into place in the coming weeks, just to restructure. So my direct report meetings all happen on one day, those team meetings, because they'd been spread over 2 days, and then it means that kind of 2 days are blocked out and you can't really do anything else in between those meetings and things like that. So I've condensed them into 1 day, maximum an hour meeting for those direct reports on a weekly basis. We still have our weekly team meeting, so across the whole company, it's 2 o'clock every Friday. So that happens pretty much every week, other than last week, obviously, being bank holiday. But and that's valued because we've got a distributed team. So it's, like I say, it's a balance between having meetings because people want to feel connected, and then also not having too many meetings because there's no value in it. There's too many. But for some people, they're in meetings all day. James, our head of tech, feels like he's in a meeting all day. He's talking to people all day. So it's a balance. And then actually sort of getting work done as well as having just meetings. So yeah, we've done a bit of work recently on trying to just restructure that. But yeah, it's we've struggled with that and probably still struggling with it. But departmental meetings and the scrums are all happening, and dev planning meetings happen, and operational teams have meetings happen and things like that. So lower down, that's kind of all working quite nicely. But yeah, my meetings, that's the bit where I struggle with, I think.
And again, you've just brought up, another key thing. The rhythm, it's not about having as many meetings as you can possibly pile in, because that's when the heartbeat is beating too fast and you feel just as ill keel over. No, it is about working out what the right rhythm is. What, tactical meetings should you have and with whom? Should you split them up into the individual teams or bring everybody together? And what is the regularity and how do they fit in? Because ideally they feed into each other. The dailies feed into the weeklies, feed into the monthlies, feed into the quarterlies, and vice versa. It cascades up and down if you're getting the rhythm right, if you're moving it forward correctly. Nigel, what about your thoughts?
I like the term you use then, just cascade. And I think we're way better at it than we were at the start of the pandemic. The pandemic seems to be a natural break for the way we communicate, because before everyone was in the office, then nobody was in the office. And I think we are very much hybrid at the moment. I personally work far better when people are in and around me. And I think I communicate better in that respect. But I do find there's some people that I speak to on a daily basis, others that I speak to once or twice a week. We have a weekly meeting every morning, Tuesday, call it the Matters in Hand meeting. That works quite well. The whole subject is what I wanted to discuss a bit later on, so I'm a bit wary of being even more repetitive than I normally am, to be honest. But
that's okay, we'll let you off then, Nigel.
I'm just very aware of silos and things like that, and poor communication. But we're better at it than we were. I don't think we've got it right.
Okay. And it's really interesting because even when you've got it right, you don't necessarily keep it right. It is something you've got to work at. I've sort of told this story before. It's probably 6-9 months ago now when we did the particular in-flight checklist. At that point, we ought to have our business rhythm nailed. But actually the whole team, when we got the scores back, had made a comment about the fact that we had slipped in our business rhythm. We'd brought new people into the business. We were doing things slightly differently. We'd slipped. So, business rhythm is one of those things that just because you get it right doesn't mean to say you keep it right. You do need to just make sure you're not slipping back into bad habits. Hannah, any thoughts or inputs from you on this one? And then I'm going to hand over to Kevin, who just wants to talk about the business rhythm and agendas and things like that.
I think we actually have quite a
good business rhythm, to be fair. We work in the office Wednesdays and Thursdays, but that works well because we have a lot of meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays. So we have individual team meetings on a Monday morning, account director meetings on Tuesday, sales meeting on Tuesday. And then obviously all the individual teams have a sort of midweek catch up to check everything's on track for end of week updates. I think the one thing we'd probably improve on is entire business meetings, to be fair, because we only do those kind of maybe like once a quarter to go through an update on where we are as a business, what's changed, what's going well, what isn't, etc. But maybe we could do those more often for additional input. I think everybody gets value from them. But no, I think, yeah, not too bad. It's probably the summary.
Good.
Don't forget to take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk to access a great range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey. So that's bizsmarts.co.uk, which is bizsmarts.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.